all of our entrepreneurs are online now, not only from Turkey, but also different countries. We have lots of attendees, participants here today. So
Okay.
we are very excited to listen to you. So the stage is yours.
I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And I'm a huge fan of all the community work that you've done in Turkey and all the investments that you've made. And what's also really remarkable is a lot of the network that you guys have built here in California. Everybody who is interested in anything about Turkey and startups and engineering over there, you are, one of the first names that they come up with when they say we want to be connected with somebody who knows what's happening on the ground there.
Thank
So
you, Niko.
excited to be here. Of course. So should I launch my PowerPoint? Like, what should I do? You tell me.
All right. I mean, as you have mentioned, your topic is really interested in.
Okay.
So we could see your presentation. You could present us some your experiences and also your knowledge, especially in San Francisco and Silicon Valley. So after that, there will be question and answer session, which our entrepreneurs are very interested in, especially raising fund and the culture over there. And also the struggles and challenges, especially the startups facing coming to San Francisco from different countries. So we are very willing to hear these kind of questions.
All right, cool. So let me, get started then.
All right.
So people are saying there is a lot of echo. Is there echo when I'm talking, or is there echo when Burak is doing the talking? Burak. Oh, you close the audio. Okay. Is it any better now? Oh, it's fine now. Okay, cool, excellent. So basically, let's get started. I'm excited to be here, and I am early stage venture capitalist out of the Palo Alto office of General Catalyst Partners. I have a very funny accent because originally I was born in your part of the world. I was born and raised between Greece and the UK. And I've been very fortunate to be investing in early stage tech companies that want to achieve world domination. So I'm going to share with you some of the early stories of the so-called unicorns that I've come across over the last 5 years that I've been with our firm. So I don't know if you guys believe in unicorns or not, but they basically live among us. And believe it or not, the most popular costume during Halloween here in the Bay Area this October was a unicorn, costume. So this is me with my partner Shalibin, who's the guy who started Evernote. Now there are a lot of unicorns. Probably you've seen this graph many times over. And there are over 130 of them. And these are companies that are valued at $1 billion plus valuation in the private markets. And a lot of the early stage companies that we come across, that's what they want to become. They want to become a unicorn, not for the sake of being a very valuable company as perceived by private investors, but they want to have a huge impact in the world. So what does it take to build one? So I'm going to share with you some early stories. So I'll start with The Honest Company. So The Honest Company is a portfolio company of ours that is in the e-commerce space. And Jessica Alba is the founder of the company. And as you know, e-commerce is a really tough category because you have to spend a lot of money on building a customer base and spend a lot of money on returns, on building and manufacturing your products. So historically, margins for e-commerce companies are kind of shit. And as a result, the exit multiples of a lot of the e-commerce companies are not that great. So they're just like 2-3x, max, revenue multiples compared to 10 to 20x that a lot of SaaS and other software companies are enjoying. So we fell out with the Honest Company when we led the Series A back in 2011 because they had Jessica Alba on board. So Jessica is a very notable actress, and at the time, she had just had 2 young kids, and she was having a really hard time to find diapers and cleaning supplies for their household that were non-toxic, that were stylish, and that they were environment friendly. So she teamed up with a couple of other guys to launch the Honest Company, and we had decided to invest in them despite being, like a pure e-commerce company, because she would basically be the unique engine for customer acquisition over the first couple of years of the company. So Jessica is a very notable person. Whenever she did an interview for one of her movies, she does roughly 3 movies a year, or whenever she did an interview about herself, always mentioned the Honest Company. And as a result, they enjoyed enormous free press and managed to build a very authentic brand without spending a single dollar in marketing other than her time. And this was a unique differentiating factor that helped them allocate the capital that they had raised on other areas. Second company is Airbnb. So we invested in these guys about 4 years ago now, and they are a unique company in many ways. But what they did early on, which was truly transformational, when they were just getting started, they didn't have any real supply, they didn't have any real demand, and the supply they had was kind of crappy, and people couldn't really figure out whether this is a nice flat or not because the photos were really messed up. What Airbnb did early on, they tried to understand who their customers are, and they figured that the early customers they had were individuals who were very price sensitive. They traveled a lot, and they often, traveled in groups. And when they were looking into the early customer data, they figured that a lot of them happened to be photographers, and photographers were were traveling in bands for work, either to shoot new photos or for exhibitions, and they don't make normally a lot of money. And they also happen to carry high quality cameras with them. So Airbnb decided to just focus on targeting photographers as potential customers. And in order to sweeten the deal for them, they offered them further discounts in exchange for high quality photos of new properties that hadn't really made it on the platform yet. As a result, even today, Airbnb has one of the largest marketplaces for photographers. It's almost like, hidden within the broader platform. And they are the ones who are responsible for the super high quality photos that you see when you go to Airbnb.com. Snapchat is a digital communications company that we invested about 3.5 years ago. When I met Evan for the first time, he was a senior at Stanford, and I very vividly remember my first interaction with him. He's one of these individuals that can create a reality distortion field. And he said to me 2 things that captivated my attention. The first thing that he said was, I want to build the fastest camera out there. I think that the native mobile camera on the iPhone sucks, and it's very slow. And for anybody who's a young person, speed really matters because you want to take a ton of photos very, very quickly. Second thing that he said to me was, when you're texting others, it takes too long to communicate whatever you have in mind. For example, if somebody were to come in this room, she or he would say over text to another friend of theirs, I'm here with Niko. Niko is giving a presentation. He seems very passionate. And this would be, like 3 texts. It would take a long time. Whereas, the alternative with Snapchat would have been one photo and maybe just a little bit of text. It would contain the exact same message. So everyone, had the insight that teenagers, care a lot about speed. They don't want to waste any of their time. And basically, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Of course, he didn't know that this would be the beginning of the selfie revolution because he couldn't really anticipate Snapchat, becoming the company riding the wave of the selfie revolution. But his insight about speedy and humane communication was spot on. Another company of ours that is not yet a unicorn, but hopefully will soon become one, is a company called Class Dojo. So Class Dojo is a very exciting K-12 education technology company. And basically what they do is they help teachers, elementary school teachers, with class management. And they make it a piece of cake. Here in the US, about 40% of the new teachers quit within the first 3 years because they find it humiliating trying to discipline young kids. It's very, very hard, and they feel humiliated and embarrassed as adults that they fail to do so. So Class Dojo did something very simple. They brought gamification into the classroom after observing thousands of teachers teaching in a classroom. And basically what it is, they learn from the most successful teachers in class management. And here in the US, a lot of them have had stickers and they had star systems that were used to motivate students and incentivize the right behaviors and punish, the bad ones. So basically, Class Dojo brought gamification in the classroom, and now every student is represented with one of these cute little avatars, and teachers can say +1 Johnny for participation, +1 for creativity, -1 for disturbing your friends. And surprisingly, this works. As a result, 4 years after they got started, 1 out of 2 teachers here in the US is using this product multiple times every week for many hours. And the company that is now a unicorn, one of the freshly minted ones, is a company called Dojo. So Dojo does something that is very unsexy. I have a hard time understanding, but it's really important. They help with the recovery of your data when you have a catastrophe. So whenever, let's say, you have a fire, in your data center, your network doesn't work, Dojo can help recover all your data. It's a hardware and software and cloud service. And the guy that you see in the photo is the founder, and Austin is 29 years old. He started this after college with his own money. And what he realized really quickly was that consumers wouldn't really pay for something like that. So he had to go after enterprises, and he had to go after law firms. But as he was somebody, really young, people weren't taking him seriously. And he also realized that he had to build a sales team because just by himself, he couldn't reach out to a lot of people and sell the product. So he had obviously no idea about recruiting an enterprise sales team. And he had no idea about how to manage one. So as a consumer, he thought, geez, who are the best, smartest salespeople that are very motivated that I've ever come across that could potentially be a good fit for my company? And he said, my favorite experience as a consumer when interact with salespeople is at the Apple Store. So he really enjoyed the interactions that he had with Apple geniuses, the people who work at Apple stores. He found out to all the local Apple stores in the Connecticut area, and he recruited a bunch of them to be the very first salespeople for his company. And they turned out to be amazing, self-motivated, early field sales employee for Dojo. Another company that we invest in is Oscar. So Oscar Health is a health insurance company. And you see the two founders in the photo. One of them also is a notable venture capitalist now, Josh Kushner with Thrive Capital. So you would ask, since when venture capitalists started making investments in insurance? That's a very low margin business, technology, who is going to buy them, and the multiples historically, if you look into the public market comps, are not that great. But there are very few opportunities to actually invest in a new insurance company because the number of licenses that are out there are given you by the different states, and they're in finite numbers. So 3 years ago, the state of New York, after the Obamacare came into effect, decided to issue some new health insurance licenses. And the Oscar guys decided to launch a new health insurance company and start operating in the state of New York because they felt that the whole health insurance experience was for the consumer. This was a very risky endeavor, and in order to buy a license, you need to raise tens of millions of dollars and just keep it in the bank, not do anything with it. But this is, the collateral essentially that you need to put in place for purchasing a license. So we felt that this by itself was a unique mode that no other, startup could easily replicate. So because we had confidence in Josh's ability to fundraise, and we had confidence in the team's ability to market and build a cool brand, we're like, shit, that's a once-in-a-decade opportunity to lead the Series A in something really unique. And that's why we invested in Oscar. So seize the day when you see opportunities opening up in regulated markets like this one. It's a great time to consider building a company. Castel, known as Zen Payroll, is one of our other companies, and you see here from 6 months ago the entire team. Now they have about 300 people, so it's grown a fair amount. They're here in San Francisco, and what they do is they want to make payroll delightful. And Charles and his two co-founders started building Gasto about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And in the first time I met him, I was like, geez, is this guy, really serious about making payroll a delightful experience, or is this, pure buzz, and is he, really entertaining dude, who gets excited about the wrong things? But he was constantly, talking about how payroll can be the most delightful experience ever because people get excited when they are getting paid, and it shouldn't suck for them or for the companies that they're employed by. And he was so insanely passionate about articulating why payroll can be delightful that one of my partners, Phil Libin, who founded Evernote, when he met with Josh, he got into the meeting, went into the meeting saying, payroll is boring. I'll never really, care about it, but a good friend of mine asked me to meet with him. Probably, I should do it. So Phil went into the meeting, and 2 hours later, he came out of the meeting and he was like, holy shit, I cannot understand why I'm building Evernote. Probably I've wasted so much of my life not working in the payroll front. So lesson learned here is if you're insanely passionate and articulate about what you are building, it can help immensely with fundraising and recruiting. And Josh is one of one in that regard. Raise.com is a really interesting secondary gift cards marketplace. Essentially, you can buy and sell discounted gift cards. And for those that are selling a gift card, it's found money. Like my granny gave me a Banana Republic gift card for $20, and I'm like, geez, granny, why? Who is a young person that never shops, from Banana Republic? I want you to sell it ASAP to get some cash in order to buy some booze. But somebody else on the other side, can get this gift card because I'm going to sell it on a discount for 80 cents on the dollar. So these started 2.5 years ago, and it's a rocket ship kind of company. So worth billions of dollars. It's out of Chicago. And like a marketplace, always early on the challenge is how do I build supply in order to have demand, how to build demand in order to have supply. So the young founder came up with a brilliant idea. He basically outsourced the supply side of his business, meaning a collection of gift cards, to partners. And he came up with a new, unique category of partners that turned out to be convenience store owners, who basically every day had interactions with hundreds of thousands of people. And in America, every American has 1 to 2 gift cards in their wallets. So whenever somebody goes to a convenience store like a 7-Eleven, trying to buy a Diet Coke, the cashier there would say, "Hey, do you have a gift card? Do you want to pay for this one with a gift card? I'll give you cash now." And this worked really, really well. And now there are convenience store owners that are making millions of dollars a year in profit because they're collecting gift cards on the ground. They're selling all of them on Raise.com same day. So a lesson learned is if you cannot figure out the supply side of your marketplace, maybe there are others who have an interest in helping you out. Another interesting case study is a company called Warby Parker. So Warby Parker is building unique and differentiated eyewear for a very affordable price. They get started out of the University of Pennsylvania, the business school there, Wharton, and it was founded by 4 MBAs. And there's a stigma here in Silicon Valley about MBAs, whether they can make good founders, CEOs of tech companies or not. But I can tell you, if everybody is like the Warby guys, oh geez, we would invest in them all day long. And why do I say that an MBA can help? Because these guys were very, very diligent about figuring out which space to go after. So they knew exactly what they wanted. They wanted to find a space where you could have, there would exist a huge player that didn't use technology and owned the entire supply chain, but was out of touch with the end consumer. And they figure out that in the eyewear space, there is one huge conglomerate, Luxottica Group, that has a lot of brands like Ray-Ban and many, many others. And they only sell through offline channels. And they don't really care about the consumer because their customer is not necessarily the consumer, but it's the store that is selling them the eyewear. So these guys figured out exactly who captures most of the margin today, how you can market very successfully online, how tech can help, and they basically launched Warby Parker. And 4 years later, they also have a massive offline component, and their stores actually make more revenue per square foot than Apple stores. ClassPass is another super exciting company of ours out of New York, and basically it's an all-you-can-eat subscription that you pay, like about $100, in order to attend any kind of group fitness classes at any gym that they have in their network in your city. And by the way, if you buy a ClassPass subscription in New York and you have to be in LA, no problem. You can walk in there at any group fitness class through the app. You can find one that you like and show up and work out. And consumers loved it. It's one of the fastest growing companies in 2015. But this was an overnight success. So the founder CEO initially had the idea of building a kayak for group fitness, where she built a directory of all the different classes in New York that people could discover and consume. But it turned out that consumers didn't really care about it. It wasn't solving that big of a problem. So she iterated, and the next idea was more of an enterprisey one, trying to help out of gyms with their subscribers registration. But also turned out that gyms think this was a very big problem, and why would they have to be using, tech and paying her a lot of money to do that? And then, she came up with the ClassPass idea, and within a month, she had more revenue than the previous 2 years combined. So she decided, to double down on that. Next company that we're very fortunate investors in is Stripe. So Stripe is an online payments company, and the founder came in to pitch us his seed round and then the Series A round 4 or 5 years ago. He said something that at the time, a lot of us couldn't really understand. So Patrick Collison, the founder of the company, said to us, I'm not going to focus on trying to acquire any big customers. I'm not going to focus on trying to get Macy's and Walmart and Nike on Stripe. Just going to focus on all the new companies that are being created. And I'm going to focus on the ones that have developers who are making the decision in regards to which payment processor to use. Because I have conviction that a lot of these new companies are going to be generating billions of dollars of revenue a few years on the road. And that's exactly what he did. He came out of Y Combinator, and he signed up a lot of YC companies and only focused on e-commerce and tech startups. And 4 years later, a lot of the companies are now in the unicorn list. And as a result, Stripe is seeing many tens of billions of payments volume that are going through the platform. So this is one of our anti-portfolio companies, Wish.com. So Wish.com is probably the most successful mobile commerce company in the US. And basically what they do is they're doing AdWords for the real world. So if you're a consumer and you're on Wish's mobile app, you start aggregating demand through curating wish lists of items that you see and you like. And then the platform goes to a lot of suppliers that they have in China that are bidding in order to have the user who has a similar item on their wish list see the offer of their particular item. So let's say that I'm looking for a basketball. I'm going to put it in my wish list, and then next day I will be seeing a lot of basketballs and their price points from a bunch of suppliers, mostly from China, that would be trying to grab my attention because I'm very highly likely to purchase one. So in the early days, the vast majority of the merchandise that they had was crap. It was like terrible quality, stuff that you wouldn't really buy unless you walked in a $1, like store. But turned out that when they were getting started, the economy here in the U.S. was still, not very strong. And guys, price really matters because the prices were so great, even if quality wasn't amazing. Americans really fell in love and started spending a lot of money on Wish.com. And a few weeks ago, it was reported that Amazon tried to buy them for $10 billion, and the guy said yes. Another company that we unfortunately are not investors in, but it's probably the most successful unicorn of the current crop is Uber. And when Uber got started 5 years ago, they started as a joke. So Gary and Travis, the two founders, they were partying one night out in San Francisco. And Gary actually has a nightclub in San Francisco. And, San Francisco at the time and even till today, it is a terrible place to find a cab. And he was like, geez, what if I just, press the button? Because a year after the iPhone, 2 years the iPhone had launched, and a black car, would show up. And Travis was, wait a moment, it's a good idea, probably, we should, make it happen. But they weren't thinking about, doing this, for real. And actually, the first CEO wasn't one of the two of them. Was another guy called Ryan Graves, who now is a billionaire, and he's still with Uber. They recruited, somebody to be the CEO because they didn't, take it seriously themselves. But the idea early on was, we're going to just go after offering the service to wealthy guys like ourselves. Both of them had exits or some success before, and we'll take it from there. And turned out that this is a pretty good, strategy because it was aspirational, and even, like people that weren't necessarily thinking of themselves as wealthy were keen on using Uber when, for example, they were going out on a date night on a Friday, or when they were traveling in other places and they were paying for stuff with the company's, credit card. So basically, these are, some examples of companies that I've come across over the last 5 years that have been a VC, but some of them are unicorns or soon to become, ones. And what do you guys, need to do in order to help, your early stage company grow up? So first lesson learned is, iterate all the freaking time. And by the way, what is successful today or what worked, 6 months ago, probably is not going to work as well, tomorrow. Every business is very different, and it's actually really, really good, to learn from other people's mistakes and trying to replicate the successful strategy, because a successful strategy is going to have diminishing returns if pursued in exactly the same way in the future, but you can definitely avoid making the same mistakes that others did in the past. People talk a lot about, amazing products, but in reality, good products are kind of table stakes today. Like most of the companies I come across and I see early on, they have good products. Some have to win big. Very rarely I come across a product that I'm like, holy shit, I should be investing in this, product yesterday. But good products are table stakes. Pay attention to what your advisors and other experts in your market are saying, but at the only feedback that matters is the one that you see from your customers and your users. And if you hear from your customers, what you're doing is good, but I'd like X, think pretty hard and make a case why building X would be potentially a better product for you. Now that the funding environment is changing, growth is still appreciated, but what's the most appreciated is sustainable growth. So if you're selling stuff for $1 and it costs you $2 to make it, that's terrible. But if it costs you 50 cents to make it, that's a good idea. So sustainable, growth is what you guys, should be focusing on. So that's pretty much it. Should I be taking the questions? I see question number one. Do I invest only in A rounds? So, our firm writes checks that range from $1 million to $50 million. The bulk of them are from 2 to 15, 1-5. At the seed stage, we do invest. We lead or co-lead about 8 to 10 seed rounds every year. And these are in companies that can either create a binary out between the seed and the Series A, meaning if the seed round gets done at a $3 to $10 million valuation, the Series A should get done at $40 million plus valuation. Then we're like, shit, we're leaving money on the table. We better, like lead or co-lead the seed round. So most of our seeds tend to be consumer facing, or in markets that want to have a bet. We cannot find a Series A or Series B stage team. We come across a team and we're like, these are our founders. We want to get invested in them really early on. Question number two. Is it very difficult to evaluate early stage startups valuation? How do you do it? So valuations, that's an interesting topic. A lot of our LPs, ask us the same question, especially for late stage stuff. So when we think about, valuations, obviously, the earlier it is, the harder it becomes to come up with a scientific way, because there are very few data points. For example, companies don't have revenue, or often they don't have a business model, and you're like, how valuable is this company? A few ways to think about it is let the market decide. So, for example, when a company receives, like several term sheets from other people, that's a way, like to be like, oh wow, this company has a high perceived market value at the moment, or we have a lot of comps from other similar state, similar market companies that we've invested in the past, or other investors have invested in the past, and we know. Normally, if there is a little bit more evidence, you basically pay ahead 1 to 2 years, the forward, annual revenue run rate. And this used to be 3 or 4 years, up to 6 to 9 months ago, for some of the fast-growing, unicorn-bound companies. But now it seems that the capital markets are becoming a little bit tighter. How can we spot a potential unicorn when they approach you at early stage? It's really hard. Most of the times we don't get it right. The good news, though, is that we don't need to get it right every time. We just need to get it right a few times, and that's the only time when we get paid. But it always starts and ends with the founders. Once in a while, you come across individuals who are very special and can defy gravity. We actually did a portfolio review about 2 weeks ago, and we looked into our top 15 at the moment portfolio companies, and all of them had founders that had superpowers, and in some instances, of course, massive weaknesses, but all of them are individuals that can defy gravity. And what we're looking into the founders that we end up investing in is, are they learning animals? Can they learn amazingly well, and they treat every decision and every opportunity as a learning opportunity? And secondly, are they mission driven and authentic in what they're doing? Because building startups is very hard. Like, often I have a hard time why people, starting companies. There's so many ups and downs. So you need somebody, who is driven beyond the financial aspect. Like, you want somebody who's authentic. She or he wants to solve a particular problem their own way in order to be able to survive the bad times. Airbnb was a very risky investment in early stage, yes, because most people would say, "Shit, why would we want to have a stranger live in the living room?" One of the things that we liked with the team there was that Brian, the founder CEO, for the first 2 years of the company's life, he didn't have a house. He was living on an Airbnb apartment every night, a different one, in order to learn everything about how hosts are thinking, how customers are thinking, and we were deeply, deeply inspired by that. The guy was a savant when it came to understanding his customers and the supply side. As far as the market, it was an easier one because the thought was, whoa, a lot of people can make a shitload of money just by listing one or two rooms from their houses. And essentially every house, every flat in the world could be an Airbnb. How can a startup get in touch with you to get your guidance? They can contact me over email. My email is Niko, Niko at journalcatalyst.com. Um, Normally, the best introductions come to me from portfolio founders that for others that our firm have worked with, or um, I'll never say no to a portfolio founder who was introducing me to a friend of theirs or somebody we think highly of. Um, or I go and do some events, and people contact me there. Do you also share some of the failing stories in your portfolio companies? Oh, there's plenty, that I can share. Venture capital is called venture because most of the companies fail. And why do companies fail? Reason number one is they run out of cash. That's the number one reason. They don't have enough money in the bank to make payroll next time, or they cannot raise more money because investors think that the company is not going to succeed. Second reason why companies fail is because founders don't like each other, and often companies have more than one co-founders, and when you get started you think you are friends, but over time you figure out that you're not the best business partners, and there's a lot of drama, and a lot of the focus is not on building an amazing product and a great business, but on trying to eliminate each other, and that's one of the reasons why they fail. Thirdly, companies of ours fail because their market disappeared in front of them, or what they're doing is no longer strategic as the founders and we thought in the early days. And this happens a fair amount nowadays, that the market and the tech cycles are much, much shorter than what they used to be. So how much do we interfere in the management of the companies that invested in? We are not the protagonists. The founders and the CEOs are running the company. It's their company. We don't see ourselves as members of the management team, but we are trusted advisors. In most instances, we have a board seat, and I think of myself as somebody who can help our portfolio founders in 5 ways. Can help them with all aspects of recruiting, sourcing candidates, evaluating candidates, helping close candidates. I can help with BD, basically opening doors around distribution. I can help with future fundraising, because all of our companies would have to raise more capital later on. Fourthly, I can help with any M&A discussions in the event that our company's founders want to sell, because we have experience helping portfolio companies sell to bigger acquirers. And lastly, as I mentioned before, startups have a lot of ups and downs, and often people break up with their significant others. They have nobody else to talk to, so they very frequently receive calls late in the evening where people just need a person to listen to them. And with great pleasure, I'm doing this to our founders. We want to be the first person they call when something good or bad happens. How long do I think that it will take us to see many other great unicorns from other startup ecosystems? This is happening. Like if you see what's happening in China, what's happening in India, what's happening in Sweden, in the UK, it's already happening. I think I saw a chart, that there are about 10 or so unicorns that have come out of Europe. So it's pretty good time. Like entrepreneurship is a global phenomenon. It's not just a local sport for folks here in Silicon Valley. It's a global phenomenon. And for example, in our case, a lot of the founders I talked to you guys about, they were born overseas. We don't care about checking the passport or where the companies were started. We care about companies that go after world domination. What do I think about the valuations of unicorns? Yep, most of the companies that we saw on that slide that I sent you probably will have a harder time raising capital in the future, especially if they're burning cash like there is no tomorrow, and if they don't have a sustainable business model as a result. So if the public markets go down, or if there's crazy volatility, probably the future fundraisers for a lot of these companies are not going to be as generous as the previous ones. And there's already evidence that the capital markets are tightening up. Do I think that a local startup can be investable, or do all investors seek for global products? Yeah, a local startup can definitely be investable. If, for example, you are going after a huge opportunity because your local market size is significant for that particular opportunity, can be investable. Truth to be told, there are not that many countries that have markets that have a massive size that can support, a multi-billion-dollar public company. That said, this is from the lens of an early stage VC, mostly operating out of Silicon Valley. The math, for us is such that we have to chase, after unicorns. Others who have smaller funds or angels, they don't need, multi-billion-dollar exits to return their funds. Could be happy with a $50 million exit, and a lot of local market, could support such exits. Let me have some water. So what's well, you guys are thank you for the questions. That's highly efficient. I like it. What's a perfect startup team? Oh, Burak, I wish I knew, because if I knew, I would definitely provide counsel to all of our founders. To recruit the perfect team members. Probably having somebody technical early on can help, because if you have somebody who can bullshit quickly, you can iterate very quickly. So that's almost a requirement for most of the stuff that we're excited about investing in. And the other thing is have people who have really good early insights. They observe, have the insight, they come up with a hypothesis, and then quickly, validate it or iterate, to a new one. The startup have to solve a relevant problem in order to succeed. Depends who you want to have a high strategic value, solving something relevant for potential acquirers can help a lot with the perceived value of your company. It can make fundraising easier. It can make recruiting easier. So if you're solving a contemporary problem or you're in a hot market, this can make life easier in many ways. How do we get our investment decisions? So we have a group. There are about 10 general partners here at GZ, and the 10 of us are making decisions together. And every Monday we have companies that come and pitch us. And 50% of the companies that come to our partnership meeting, we invest in them. And it's often a very heated debate where basically I feel strongly about something, but another partner of ours feels strongly against the same company. And we've learned that the most interesting companies we've had in our portfolio are the ones that were very controversial when we're discussing about them. But basically, you know, at the very end, we want to invest in companies that can return a lot of capital in our fund, and most importantly, have a global impact. Because 10 years down the road, if we look back, the only thing that matters for us is a couple of companies that we got affiliated with, and everybody knows. What are the best kept secrets about venture capital? You know, venture capital is perceived as a bit of a glorified kind of profession. It's of course a privilege to be chatting with talented individuals all day long, but it's not as glamorous as people think. There is a ton of brain damage that we have to deal with, and obviously I'm not saying that, you know, or, you know, make you guys, you know, feel sorry about me, but if you think about, you know, the average, you know, VC in a major VC firm who has a number of portfolio companies, she or he sits on their boards, there's always somewhat brain damage that person has to deal with. Like, I hate my co-founder, general counsel slept with his EA, we just got a cease and desist from a big competitor, my investors hate me. That's not fancy work. It's of course, you know, a lot of problem solving. You have to do it. But when you have 12 10 companies every week, there are a couple of instances where you're like, dude, you know, that's not the best way to spend my time. How important is the revenue projections for you? So it depends on the stage. If it's seed stage and it's a non-transactional consumer business, like a network or a messaging app, not important at all. If it's an e-commerce company that is Series A or Series B, quite important, because that's how I'll think about valuing, you know, the company in the future.
Nico, thank you very much for presentation and today's webinar.
Thank you. When are you coming to us next?
Really appreciate it.
Of course, it's my pleasure. You guys are very kind. When are you coming to the US next?
Our next event will be at the end of June.
Okay.
2016.
So
I will come earlier.
Write an email
to you.
All right, cool. So thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it. Thank you, Martina, for typing my real first name, which is Nicolas. And happy holidays to all of you. Now it's the time to rest and relax a little bit and reflect all the amazing things that you guys worked on over the last 12 months and plan ahead for the next year. So have a very good evening. Appreciate your attention. I know it's really late in Turkey now. So bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.